My friends, every once in a while, a moment arrives that forces the world to pause, to listen, and to reflect. A moment when words, not weapons, reshape the course of global dialogue. A single statement can echo far beyond the walls where it is spoken, carrying with it a power that neither armies nor economies can easily silence. What we witnessed was not just a response, not just diplomacy. It was a declaration, a reminder that in the arena of nations, dignity and self-respect are not to be compromised, not to be traded, and never to be diminished. What makes such a reply powerful is not the sharpness of its tone, but the strength of its conviction. True leadership is not measured by how loud you speak, but by how deeply your words resonate. And when those words come from a place of confidence, from a place of principle, they carry with them the ability to shake assumptions, to unsettle expectations, and to inspire generations. Words have always been underestimated in a world that often equates strength with size, wealth, or force. Yet history tells us again and again that the most powerful shifts in societies, nations, and even civilizations did not begin with an army crossing a border or a missile being launched into the sky. They began with words spoken with unshakable conviction. A statement rooted in truth has the ability to travel beyond walls, beyond borders, beyond generations. It carries within it the kind of strength that cannot be measured in weapons or dollars, but in the hearts it moves and the minds it awakens. When words are guided by principle, they redefine what it means to be strong. They remind us that courage does not always come with a raised fist, it often comes with a steady voice. The power of words lies in their permanence. A sword can break, a building can fall, but words once spoken from a place of clarity and confidence can outlive even the most powerful empires. They can echo in the chambers of history long after the moment has passed. What makes such words unforgettable is not just their sharpness, but their ability to strike at the very core of what people believe about themselves and the world around them. Words spoken with courage can challenge the status quo, dismantle false assumptions, and ignite a fire that no amount of force can extinguish. Think of the times when silence was expected, but someone chose to speak up. That moment of voice became a moment of strength, not just for the one who spoke, but for all who were listening. Because words don't just communicate, they inspire. They awaken a sense of dignity and remind people of values too easily forgotten in the noise of power struggles. They can turn doubt into determination, hesitation into resolve, fear into faith. That is why words matter more than the intimidation of force, because words don't just threaten, they transform. When words are aligned with truth, they cannot be ignored. They may be resisted, they may be ridiculed, but they remain. They stay in the minds of people long after the moment ends. They create ripples that extend far beyond the room in which they were spoken. That is why the power of words must never be underestimated, for they are the true weapons of the brave, the enduring strength of the resilient, and the eternal echo of those who choose to stand tall when silence would have been easier. Conviction is not about volume. It is not about who can shout the loudest or demand the most attention. Conviction is the quiet but unshakable belief in what is right, and it carries a weight that intimidation can never match. Intimidation may create fear in the moment, but fear fades. Conviction, however, plants itself deep in the human spirit, refusing to be moved even when the pressure is overwhelming. The world has always been changed, not by those who imposed their will through fear, but by those who stood firm with clarity, who chose to let their principles speak louder than their threats. Conviction comes from within. It is born out of a deep sense of purpose, a clear understanding of who you are and what you stand for. It does not waver when challenged, nor does it bend to the pressure of those who try to control or manipulate. Intimidation often masks weakness because it is rooted in the fear of being challenged or exposed. Conviction, on the other hand, reveals strength because it remains steady even when every force tries to shake it. That steadiness inspires others because people are naturally drawn to voices that carry certainty, not insecurity. The power of conviction lies in its ability to outlast. Intimidation may win a battle, but conviction wins the war of ideas. When someone speaks from a place of true belief, the words may not silence opposition immediately, but they linger. They plant seeds of thought, and over time those seeds grow into movements, into change, into lasting impact. Conviction has the ability to shift narratives, to reshape what people believe is possible, and to challenge even the most deeply ingrained assumptions. Throughout history, the individuals and nations remembered are not those who tried to bully their way into dominance, but those who carried themselves with conviction even in the face of overwhelming odds. Conviction turns weakness into courage, uncertainty into resolve, and adversity into opportunity. It is the compass that guides decisions, the anchor that keeps one steady in storms, and the light that shines when the path forward seems dark. Intimidation may seem powerful in the short term, but it cannot compete with the enduring influence of conviction that continues to inspire long after the noise of threats has faded. Identity is the foundation upon which all strength is built. Without a clear sense of who you are, you become vulnerable to the pressures of others, swayed by demands, expectations, and compromises that erode your dignity piece by piece. But when you know your identity, when you recognize your worth, your values, and your place in the world, you stand firm in the face of any challenge. Identity is not something to be negotiated, not something to be handed over for temporary approval or fleeting advantage. It is the core of your being, and to compromise it is to compromise everything. Nations, like individuals, rise to greatness when they refuse to allow their identity to be shaped by external forces. It is easy to chase acceptance, to bend under pressure for the sake of temporary peace, but that kind of peace is fragile. True strength comes from standing rooted in identity, even when others try to question it, even when the cost of holding on to it seems high. Those who know who they are do not need validation, because their very presence demands respect. There is a quiet power in identity. It does not need to shout or prove itself, because it carries a weight that cannot be denied. When someone or some nation speaks from a place of secure identity, the world takes notice. It is not arrogance. It is not defiance. It is confidence rooted in truth. That confidence cannot be shaken by criticism, nor diminished by threats, because it is not dependent on the approval of others. It is self-sustaining, drawing strength from within rather than from outside applause. Identity is also what inspires others. When people witness someone unafraid to embrace who they are, it sparks something inside of them. It challenges them to examine their own values, their own sense of belonging, their own foundation. Identity, when lived with integrity, becomes a mirror that reflects back courage to those watching. It says you too can stand without apology. You too can live without compromise. That is why holding on to identity matters, because it not only preserves dignity in the present, but it also shapes the path forward for generations to come. It leaves behind a legacy that says strength was never about fitting in, but about standing out with unwavering certainty in who you are. Resilience is the true measure of strength, because it is not tested when everything is easy, but when the weight of the world seems impossible to carry. Pressure reveals character, and those who choose to stand tall in the middle of storms are the ones history remembers. It is in the moments of greatest difficulty, when compromise feels tempting and surrender seems like the only escape, that resilience defines legacy. To remain steady when the winds of criticism blow, to remain calm when the voices of doubt grow louder, and to remain determined when obstacles multiply. That is what separates leaders from followers, nations that endure from nations that fade. Resilience is not about ignoring hardship, nor is it about pretending the pressure doesn't exist. It is about facing it head-on, acknowledging the challenge and refusing to let it break your spirit. Pressure can bend steel, but resilience allows the human spirit to endure and adapt in ways that seem impossible to those who give in too quickly. It is in resilience that courage is proven, and in resilience that lasting progress is made. Every moment of resistance becomes a stepping stone towards strength, and every refusal to yield becomes part of a story that inspires others to do the same. When a person or a nation demonstrates resilience under pressure, they set a precedent. They show others that it is possible to rise above circumstances rather than be defined by them. They prove that it is possible to withstand the weight of criticism, rejection, or even isolation, and still walk forward with dignity. That example becomes a light to those who are struggling, a reminder that resilience is not only possible but powerful. Legacy is not built on easy victories. Legacy is built on scars, on sacrifices, on moments when it would have been easier to walk away, but the choice was made to endure. That is why resilience leaves a lasting mark. It tells the story of perseverance, of refusing to surrender values in the face of overwhelming opposition. Pressure is temporary, but the strength gained from withstanding it is permanent. And that strength echoes through time, reminding future generations that the measure of greatness was not in avoiding challenges, but in meeting them with resilience that could not be broken. Respect is not demanded or forced upon others. It is something that must be earned through consistency, principles, and authenticity. When someone tries to command respect without demonstrating integrity, the result is resistance, not admiration. True respect grows naturally out of actions that align with words, out of a track record of decisions that reflect fairness, strength, and conviction. People do not follow or admire because they are told to. They follow because they see something real, something that cannot be faked. Respect, in its truest form, is the reflection of character mirrored back by those who witness it. History is filled with leaders, nations, and individuals who thought respect could be bought, demanded, or threatened into existence. And yet, every time, those efforts failed. Respect born out of fear is fragile and fleeting, disappearing the moment the power behind it weakens. But respect that is earned through integrity lasts long after the individual is gone. It lives on because people remember how it felt to be treated with fairness, to see courage in the face of difficulty, to witness humility in the midst of greatness. That kind of respect cannot be taken away because it has been secured in the hearts of others. Earning respect requires patience. It is not a one-time act, but a consistent choice, a repeated commitment to uphold values even when no one is watching. It means choosing honesty over deception, service over selfishness, principle over convenience. Those who seek shortcuts may gain attention. They may even gain power, but they will never gain the deep respect that transforms influence into legacy. Respect requires building trust, brick by brick, choice by choice, until it becomes unshakable. And once earned, respect creates a ripple effect. It inspires others to carry themselves with the same dignity, to lead with the same consistency, to pursue their goals with the same determination. Respect attracts loyalty, it builds bridges, and it strengthens bonds that endure through trials. It is the quiet force that moves people to stand together, not because they have to, but because they want to. That is why respect is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Not demanded through position, but earned through principle. Not requested by words, but secured through actions that speak louder than anything else. Courage is not just about the moment when a person stands up, it is about the lasting impact of that stand. When one individual chooses to speak truth when silence would be easier, or to hold firm when compromise feels safer, something extraordinary happens. They plant a seed of courage in the hearts of others. What may begin as a single act of bravery becomes a chain reaction, inspiring people who might never have believed they had the strength to rise. Courage does not live in isolation. It multiplies. It creates movements, builds communities, and shapes generations because one choice to stand tall shows others what is possible. Throughout history, the greatest changes did not come from the loudest or the strongest, but from the ones willing to risk standing alone. The act of courage, whether through words, decisions, or defiance against injustice, breaks the cycle of fear and reminds people of their own inner strength. It tells a story far greater than the moment itself. It tells a story of what can be achieved when integrity matters. What Iheversum dapper, more than approval, when conviction matters more than comfort. This kind of courage leaves behind an example that future generations can look to when they face their own battles. When young people see courage demonstrated, it gives them permission to be courageous themselves. It teaches them that fear does not have to be the final word, that intimidation does not have to dictate destiny, and that silence does not have to be the answer to oppression. One voice that refuses to be silenced, all up to one alaz, can inspire countless others to find their own voices. And that is how movements are born. Not through convenience, but through courage that proves impossible to ignore. And courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unshaken in the face of overwhelming pressure. Sometimes it is the ability to endure ridicule, to withstand criticism, or to take the difficult path rather than the easy one. But in every case, courage builds a foundation that others can stand on. It gives hope where there was despair, confidence where there was doubt, and vision where there was confusion. This is why courage becomes bigger than the individual who displayed it. It becomes a gift to future generations, a reminder that the strength to rise lives within all of us, waiting for the moment when it will be needed most.